Hey guys, welcome back to episode 2 of the high level analysis series. Today we have a Terran versus a Protoss Zerg. And so you'll notice like what I'm doing with my workers there. You can do what's called stacking, and it basically just pairs up on the minerals like that. It's just efficient. If you didn't know that, you should definitely get in the habit of that. It's not like game breaking or anything like that, but if you're trying to hit like real crisp timings with anything mineral related, it definitely helps out a lot. There are many different types of styles that you can play from this perspective. You can play mech, you can play bio, you can play air toss, air Terran, but I wouldn't really recommend playing air Terran in this matchup. Although I will say with the meta, Mass Liberators is basically the counter to Mass Sky Toss. Definitely one way you can do it. So, in the loading screen, I know I'm playing against PZ. And so in this game, I opt for the Reaper Expand. And I kind of have to decide, like, what is it that I'm going to play. And I need to do this before I actually figure out what the builds are. Because I don't SCV scout so as to retain my random race advantage. And so in this game, I decided to go for bio play. Which is absolutely viable in this matchup, albeit a bit harder than playing mech. But you can make it work. So I pop up into the base here and I see that the warp gate is not turning. And he has 2 gases, right? So I immediately know that he's going for air. And I ping that to my teammate. And so I go for an early engineering bay here. And the early engineering bay just means that I want to get both missile turrets out, but I also want to get +1 attacks. Because when you play against this style of Stargate, where they skip the warp gate, you can go for +1 weapons, and you can hit a timing that will do a lot of damage. It can do things like deny a third. It can trade really well and put you in an advantageous spot. So of course I dart back in here just to confirm whether he's getting warp gate or not, and then of course I find the Stargates. The Stargates are under production here. I kind of make a mistake. Like, you don't really need to build the turrets this early. I could have waited a little longer before I built the turrets, but that's what I did. That's definitely a mistake though. Like, you have to think the Stargates have to get chronoed, and then he has to build up a reasonable amount of army before he moves out. So building the turrets this early is definitely a mistake. Like, I could have already had a factory, things like that. So that is definitely not optimal. I would build the turrets probably after you've put down the factory, because then this doesn't delay your tech. And you can see I'm kind of overgassed here, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being overgassed. It's just not as efficient. So essentially what I'm doing here is I have identified that we're going to be going up against Stargate. And typically what that will mean is your Zerg opponent is probably going to be playing ground in the form of Ling Bane. And then he'll probably move into something like Ultras later into the game, right? So I want to hit this timing because I don't want the Zerg player to just drone for free. And I want to check for the third base. And because I have +1, I know I'm going to be a lot more efficient than most of these types of timings, right? So at the very least, I'm going to get a cancel somewhere, or I'm going to get a really good trade on army. And at the very, very least, I'm going to stop the Zerg player from droning. And that's sort of the reasoning behind this attack. And then I just take a third base behind this. But here's the thing. I don't actually know if Zerg is going Ling Bane. I'm just kind of assuming that's the case. And that's another reason why I do this attack, so that I can confirm what the Zerg player is going. So as you can see, I was checking for the third. Obviously, the third is there. This type of a timing, you can really do a lot of damage to the air. And then from here, I have confirmed the composition, right? So I don't expect this to end the game or anything like that, but I'm just trying to kill stuff and make the Zerg player stop droning. That's essentially what I'm trying to do here. And then so from here, I know that I'm up against Phoenix, Ling Bane, right? And one of the ways to counter this is by going for Marines and Mines. And so I dropped the second factory. And you need to get the armory, obviously, because you need to get drilling claws for your Widow Mines. And it's really effective against Sky Toss in a lot of cases, because Sky Toss usually doesn't have detection. And they rely on the Overseer from Zerg to, you know, provide detection or whatever. And so from the Terran perspective, one of the things that what you need to do is after you, I mean, really against Zerg at all, you want to have additional walls outside, right? So the left side of the map, where the time warp is and where the rock is, you eventually need to start creating a supply depot wall over there in case of run-bys, which is what I do here. And unfortunately a bit late, but it doesn't matter because I have, you know, I have good defense there, right? So before you make an attack, you need to make sure that that's walled, because if that isn't walled, a Ling run-by will get into your natural, or excuse me, your third base and kill all of your workers. And that sort of just defeats the whole point of moving out, right? But from here, I'm committed to bio-mine. And the reason for this is because I've identified Stargate Ling Bane. And this is a really, really, really good composition against that. Of course, if you're not good at the game, you don't really want to use this comp because it's very micro-intensive. So once I feel like I have like a healthy army, I decide it's time to attack. And the reason for this is because if the Protoss player is playing Stargate correctly, you don't want to spend too much time not doing anything, because you don't want him to get to a critical mass of carriers. Because when that happens, in conjunction with lurkers, using bio against that is almost impossible. And so it's important that this may not necessarily end the game, but you need to do damage, right? And so as you can see, the Widow Mines clear up a lot of the interceptors and a lot of the Ling Bane, which gives you free reign on, you know, just doing a lot of damage. Stopping the drone count, stopping this third base from getting too out of control, right? And so we take the third base, and from here we both have our third bases. I don't know if the Zerg has a fourth, but really it doesn't matter because Protoss will never be able to get a reasonable army from this point forward. So all you really have to do is just sit there and make Marines and Mines from this point forward and rally them across the map. And you can see this composition can sometimes not really go in your favor. Like the Widow Mines are shitting on our army, right? But again, overall, this attack was fine because we did enough damage to his third base. Now they're forced to attack into our macro because Protoss is at a huge disadvantage from this point going forward. And Zerg, from the Zerg perspective, Zerg, if the players are good, Zerg will not 1v2 this scenario. So as you can see, his carrier count's very low, and that is the result of taking out the third base, both in my first initial push and our second attack. And I would say at about the 11-minute mark, you should really scan the main of Zerg to find out whether or not he's going for Hive, because if he's going for Hive, then you need to build additional barracks to start countering Ultralisk play. So as we can see, this is a strategy that is very, very good against PZ if it's played right. And if you don't do that initial timing that I did, Bio can really, really get scaled hard, right? Because Zerg's going to have 4 bases, Zerg's going to have 5 bases, he's going to have Ling Bane, he's going to have all kinds of, you know, all kinds of shit that counters Bio play, right? But again, I want to reiterate the importance of this right here. You cannot move out with this composition until you have this wall, or any wall really, because if you start parading across the map and a Ling run by gets into your natural here or your third base and kills your economy here, you're not going to be able to reinforce, which is the important part of this attack, being able to send it across the map. Reinforce, reinforce, take good trades, all the while you're getting your upgrades and things of that nature. I would like to note here, what this guy is doing, don't do this. This is bad. You don't want to have your production in literally the furthest, especially if you're in a scenario where you're sending units across the map like this, you don't want to have your production all the way in the corner of the map. Like, these 4 Raxes that he built should have been up here. Kind of like what I did here, because again, the strategy is parade marching. You're just constantly rallying across the map and taking good trade after good trade after good trade, right? So that's going to do it for the video, guys. If you like this content, hit that thumbs up. Leave a comment if you want more. Also consider donating. I provide a lot of content, StarCraft 2 content for you guys, and there is no way for me to actually continue doing that without your support. So the donation link will be in the description below, and I hope to see you guys on the next video. Thank you guys very much for tuning in, and peace out.